Here we start part 4, the heroes of the Trojan War. So chapter 13 is the Trojan War. And it's hard to tell whether, well, some stuff must be going out, but it seems like more stuff is going in. The brick wall or stone wall or whatever with the gate, but the gate's shut, and the army out front with its spears held high. Or maybe they're launching. And of course, dark clouds overhead for mood. This story, of course, is taken almost entirely from Homer. The Iliad, however, begins after the Greeks have reached Troy, when Apollo sends the pestilence upon them. It does not mention the sacrifice of Iphigenia, and makes only a dubious allusion to the judgment of Paris. I have taken Iphigenia's story from a play by the 5th century tragic poet Aeschylus, the Agamemnon, and the judgment of Paris from the Trojan women. A play by his contemporary Euripides, adding a few details such as the tale of Oenon from the prose writer Apollodorus, who wrote probably in the 1st or 2nd century of the Common Era. He is usually very uninteresting, but in treating the events leading up to the Iliad, he was apparently inspired by touching so great a subject as he did, and he is less dull than in almost any other part of the book. More than 1,000 years before Christ, near the eastern edge of the Mediterranean, was a great city, very rich and powerful, second to none on earth. The name of it was Troy, and even today, no city is more famous. The cause of this long-lasting fame was a war told of in one of the world's greatest poems, the Iliad, and the cause of the war went back to a dispute between 3 jealous female entities, and the judgment of Paris looks like someone's surrounded by 3 female entities. 2 are together. One has one of those, feather crown things. Although it's not a feather, it's like kind of like a brush or something. You know what I mean? And there's a winding tree. I don't know what type of tree. And there's some rocks on the other side. He's sitting on a rock by the tree, but so hence goes the prologue. The judgment of Paris, which in Greek you would say the S. Of course, the S is not always, depending on the end form. Sometimes it's an N, sometimes it's a P, that sort of thing. But let's also remember, isn't Troy one of those places that's, it turns out the story of Troy was historical, but it was rebuilt upon another. Some of these war stories actually represent a series of conquerings, but anyways, the evil female entity of discord, Ares, was naturally not popular in Olympus, and when the entities gave a banquet, they were apt to leave her out. Resenting this deeply, she determined to make trouble, and she succeeded very well indeed. At an important marriage, that of King Peleus and the sea nymph Thetis, which she alone of all the entities was not invited, she threw into the banqueting hall a golden apple, marked for the fairest. Of course, all the female entities wanted it, but in the end, choice was narrowed down to three: Aphrodite, Hera, and Pallas Athena. They asked Zeus to judge between them, but very wisely he refused to have anything to do with the matter. Well, being the most beautiful could differ which man's being talked to. He told them to go to Mount Ida near Troy, where the young prince Paris, also called Alexander, was keeping his father's sheep. He was an excellent judge of beauty, Zeus told them. Paris, though a royal prince, was doing shepherd's work because his father, Priam, the king of Troy, had been warned that this prince would some day be the ruin of his country, and so had sent him away at the moment Paris was living with a lovely nymph named Oenon. His amazement can be imagined when there appeared before him the wondrous form of the three great female entities. He was not asked, however, to gaze at the radiant entities and choose which of them seemed to him the fairest, but only to consider the bribes each offered, and choose which seemed to him best worth taking. Nevertheless, the choice was not easy. What men care for most was set before him. Hera promised to make him Lord of Europe and Asia. Athena, that he would lead the Trojans to victory against the Greeks and lay Greece in ruins. Aphrodite, that the fairest something of a coward too, as later events showed, chose the last. He gave Aphrodite the golden apple. That was the judgment of Paris, famed everywhere as the real reason why the Trojan War was fought. The Trojan War. The fairest women in the world. Fairest woman in the world was Helen, the daughter of Zeus and Leda, the sister of Castor and Pollux. Such was the report of her beauty, that not a young prince in Greece but wanted to marry her. When her suitors assembled in her home to make a formal proposal for her hand, they were so many and from such powerful families that her reputed father, King Tyndareus, her mother's husband, was afraid to select one among them, fearing that the others would unite against him. He therefore exacted first a solemn oath from all that they would champion the cause of Helen's husband, whoever he might be. If any wrong was done to him through his marriage, it was, after all, to each man's advantage to take the oath, since each was hoping he would be the person chosen. So they all bound themselves to punish to the uttermost anyone who carried or tried to carry Helen away. Then Tyndareus chose Menelaus, the brother of Agamemnon, and made him king of Sparta as well. Now, if you're aiding or facilitating or arranging or whatever a marriage for other people, do what's in the best interest of them, not yourself. So matters stood when Paris gave the golden apple to Aphrodite. The female entity of love and beauty knew very well where the most beautiful woman on earth was to be found. She led the young shepherd, with never thought of Oenon, left forlorn, straight to Sparta, where Menelaus and Helen received him graciously as their guest. The ties between guest and host were strong. Each was bound to help and never harm the other, but Paris broke that sacred bond. Menelaus, trusting completely to it, left Paris in his home and went off to Crete. Then Paris, who coming, entered a friend's kind dwelling, shamed the hand that gave him food, stealing away a woman. Menelaus got back to find Helen gone, and he called upon all Greece to help him. The chieftains responded, as they were bound to do. They came, eager for the great enterprise, to cross the sea and lay mighty Troy in ashes. 2, however, of the first rank were missing. Odysseus, king of the island of Ithaca, and Achilles, the son of Peleus, and the sea nymph Thetis. Odysseus, who was one of the shrewdest and the most sensible men in Greece, did not want to leave his house and family to embark on a romantic adventure overseas for the sake of a faithless woman. He pretended, therefore, that he had gone mad. When a messenger from the Greek army arrived, the king was plowing a field and sowing it with salt instead of seed. Thus more or less ruining the thing forever. But, well, depending on the level, but the messenger was shrewd too. He seized Odysseus's little son and put him directly in the way of the plow. Instantly, the father turned the plow aside, thus providing that he had all his wits about him. However reluctant, he had to join the army. Achilles was kept back by his mother. The sea nymph knew that if he went to Troy, he was fated to die there. She sent him to the court of Lycomedes, the king, who had treacherously killed Theseus and made him wear women's clothes and hide among the maidens. Well, I hear Stephen Crowder or something likes to do that. Odysseus was dispatched by the chieftains to find him out. Disguised as a peddler, he went to the court where the lad was said to be, with joyous ornaments in his back, such as women love, and also some fine weapons. While the girls flocked around the trinkets,